Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be featuring two replays in one Soviet vehicle and one Chinese vehicle, where at the end of it I just question why I am still alive, or how am I still alive. That's one of my favorite things to say on stream. You know, those kind of games where you seem to just get through the scenario and you don't know how you quite managed to do it. Well, I'll try and talk through how at least I was thinking how I was going to get through this situation. What you're going to be seeing here is a combination of, I guess, a lot of luck and also, you know, that sheer determination of one more shot. That's something that I kind of try to say to myself when I'm in battles where I just know that I'm going to die. Why not just get one more shot in before you do, right? I'm not the kind of player who would ever try and shy away from a fight. I hopefully don't drown myself. I have to admit, one time recently on stream, I did actually accidentally drown myself, and I was very annoyed at myself, very annoyed indeed, because I absolutely detest people who decide to drown themselves at the end of the game. I guess because they just can't face fighting to a grisly demise, or even when you say grisly demise, why not a glorious demise, right? I guess a lot of players like that are doing it because they want to either deny experience to the enemy team, they want to deny a kill to the enemy team, maybe screw up their missions, stop them from being able to get medals, or maybe they just can't face it and there's some kind of mentality there that I would rather take my own life than have somebody else do it. But this is just a game after all. Why am I taking this so seriously, you might be wondering. But at the start of this game, how has the Tier 10 Soviet heavy tank, the IS-7, performed? Well, we've got two shots into the Stritsvan 1030, and that's because that tank can bounce 120mm caliber shells, but the IS-7 has a big old derpy 130mm, and so that means the armor-piercing rounds are always going to go through. Now I'm firing some APCR rounds. Now I'm bumping up the penetration from 250 up to 300, and when you're engaging tanks like Type 4 heavies, IS-7s, Yak Tigers, these premium rounds on the IS-7 can very much help, and the reason for that is because the DPM of this tank is abysmally low, 2,145, and so that means that every single time I fail to penetrate a tank, it's an utter disaster. You might be thinking, well, you failed to penetrate the IS-7 twice, right? Okay, so now we're going to dig in our armor here. We angle in. The IS-7 is all about making micro adjustments to the front of your vehicle. And now I know both of those tanks are reloading. I have to go around the corner and put a shot in. And I'm actually going to wedge my tank upwards because he was aiming at my lower plate. And so by wedging my tank upwards, well, at least the back of the tank upwards there, that means that my lower plate is going to be very well angled and the IS-7 is going to ricochet straight off it. Unfortunately for me, that sneaky Swedish Tier 9 tank destroyer pops up over the ridge and puts one through my front. But we're in a very precarious situation here. Just look how many tanks we have. I'm having a look behind me. It's always a good idea to know who you exactly have behind you, right? Now this IS-7 is going to come out again and I'm going to try and shoot just up high. Oh, it doesn't quite work out and we bounce another shell off this IS-7. And I just thought at this stage that I was completely throwing this game. Well, it's not that I was thinking about it, I was. You cannot afford to not penetrate shots in the... Oh, not another one! This is just a disaster. This IS-7 has been bouncing off me, and I've been bouncing off him. So I have to pull back now. I have to get all of the tanks that are situated here and here into the fight, and by pulling back and using the wrecks of my allies, I might be able to do that. I'm going to try and lure their heavy tanks into the line of fire of my team, while hopefully trying to also pay attention to what might be coming around on the right. Now, funnily enough, this T100LT is going to be able to penetrate the side of my tank there. I think he shot up into it. I repair my fuel tanks because I don't want to burn. I'm not using a fire extinguisher. And right now it's all about just trying to keep the thick part of my tank towards opponents that I think I can bounce. And try and use this wreck behind me to avoid shells from the Object 140. So now what I'm going to do is reverse, aiming at the Object 140 because I know he's a one-shot, and try and bait the heavy tanks further and further around the corner into my line of fire. The T100 fails to penetrate me. Looks like I get hit by a Tier 8 artillery there. And 41 hit points to the tanks behind me. Nope, not today, Object 140. Because we angled our armor around there, the Yak Tiger actually bounces off our front plate. And oh, how the tables have turned, ladies and gentlemen. Put one into the upper plate there of the Yak Tiger, and I realize now that I was still firing premium ammunition. To be honest, you don't really need that when shooting at a Yak Tiger, as we're clearly going to see here. Of course, it will help. It will maybe reduce the chances of you bouncing from maybe a 1 in 3 chance to a practically 0% chance if you're shooting at the superstructure like that. However, you know, when things are so frenetic as they were during that combat, the last thing that you can think about is micromanaging your round usage, trying to angle all of your armor towards the opponents surrounding you, and woof! 4,700 damage, 1,400 spotting and tracking, I guess. What a round. And now this is just going to be the icing on the cake. Hello there, IS-7. How are you doing? and he actually angles his turret armor down towards us, and I can put one right into the back of his turret and blow his head clean off. Not too bad, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of guess when I was streaming at the time, I kind of flashed the bring the heat. Luckily, not too many heat rounds did hit us in this replay. If you're wondering where this camouflage is from, this is from Wargaming Fest, where if you either attended the event or if you, I think it was, purchased a mission, you could get one of the camos, and I thought, it looks pretty good on a Soviet vehicle, right? I have to admit, these, damn, I actually did a little bit of damage to this Sturzfang 1030 there, my bad. I did to put on the handbrake a little bit too slow there, but yeah, as I was saying, sorry, I've totally lost my train of thought talking about camo not wanting to damage that tier 9 Swedish tank destroyer. But yeah, I was going to mention about what I think about the historical camos. Obviously there's a lot of weird looking camos going into the game recently, but of course, if you don't like them, as long as Wargaming have that option so that you can just turn them off and not have to look at them, then what's the problem with them, right? And personally for me, I think it's quite fun to have vehicles that you just enjoy, and for me, I quite enjoy playing the IS-7. It's just such a friendly tank. Its armor is fantastic, and it just seems to be able to pull off miracles, and I needed a miracle to be able to get through that one. But it was also a miracle in still knowledge of the enemy's, I was going to say weak points, or I clearly didn't show knowledge of weak points shooting that IS-7. At least I thought I knew where I was shooting him, but maybe my shells just weren't flying true that day. Nevertheless, there's that Sturzfang 1030. Oh, he's set on fire, loses his fire extinguisher, and right now I have to stop the T-54 from getting my side, so I try and ram him, but because it was going upslope, I have no momentum, and I'm not at the end of the game. Sneaky little lad. Doesn't look like I'm getting a steel wall from this one. But nevertheless, one of those kind of rounds where you just got to question how you managed to get through that. So now we're going to be changing nations to China, changing tank type to a tank destroyer, and also dropping down one tier. I'm playing in the WZ-111 GFT, and as you'll know if you've watched my recent tank review of the vehicle, it's one of my favorite go-tos at tier 9, but just when you want to stay in it and just kill whatever's in front of you. This vehicle is pretty much a fat ISU 152. Whether it's worth playing it up at tier 9 compared to playing the tier 8 Soviet ISU 152, we have to check out my review for that. Now I make a crucial mistake right at the start of this game. I get greedy. I don't use my repair kit, thinking that the Sturzfang 1030, the tier 9 Swedish tank destroyer, won't quite have a good enough rate of fire to be able to keep my tracks off long enough before my crew put them back on. But when I went to the garage after this game, I literally knew that I had retrained my commander, and for some reason I didn't take repairs on the commander. I guess because I wanted to boost my view range up as far as I possibly can with this vehicle. Because if you use coated optics on this tank, along with recon and situational awareness, and the commander is also the radio operator, which puts a lot of pressure on him on this vehicle, then you can really pump that view range up without even having to use binoculars. But unfortunately, you know, you can't make too many mistakes against tier 9 tank destroyers, right? The Su-122-54, the Sturzfang 1030 shooting me 3 times, including one right up into the cupola there, and now I am a shadow of my former self, and the fat ISU-152 doesn't have many hit points left here to trade effectively. So in this scenario, when you're in a tank destroyer that invests all of its damage into an alpha shot and isn't exactly the most sneaky, what is your best course of action for when you've got no hit points and you're facing a huge onslaught of enemies and having some tank destroyers sneaking up around there? So right now what I was thinking is I've got to just try and keep sneaking the shots in. But of course, whenever I get spotted, I have to be careful about the 1030 and the T-54. Well, sorry, the Su-122-54. But of course, the 1030 here is actually deciding to pop up, and so I have to take a bit of a risk. I have to pop up, shoot as quickly as I can, I take his tracks off, and now I pull back. And I pull back just in time to be able to ricochet a couple of shots. So when you're a one-shot like this, and even when you're not a one-shot, but especially when you are, you have to kind of readjust the kind of risks that you take. Excuse me, but you have to still take some. Obviously, I'm dying as much as the tank is nearly dying here, right? On such low hit points at this early stage of the game. Having until that shot that we put in, having done no damage, that's not what I like to be doing in World of Tanks. But as I was saying, you still have to take risks, especially when your team is down 5 tanks. And one of the reasons why they'll be down 5 tanks is because I feel I've just made poor decision making in this game so far. The position that I ended myself up in is because I was actually situated at where that 1030 was to try and shoot through the middle of the map, but that just didn't quite work out for me. I can't pop up too far there because the Swedish tank destroyer is easily going to be able to shoot what I call the forehead of this tank and be able to take me out. And considering he's got 308 millimeters of penetration, I believe they're one of the highest in the game, especially at tier 9, then it's really not going to work out well for me. So I have to basically just try and distract him. I have to hope that possibly that T10 is going to be able to get a shot in. Hopefully that the WTR Panzer IV is going to be able to pressure the Type 4 Heavy in the M103. And it's just about staying in it. The worst thing that you can do is to lose your gun from the game, because unless you're ammo racked or you've got a dead gunner or a dead loader, you're still at 100% combat capacity, or shall I say, your damage dealing capabilities are still at a maximum right up until you lose that final hit point. So by just staying in the game here and being a threat, I'm going to slow down the 1030. And sure, it's boring. Sure, you're not going to be packing in that WN8 or even getting huge fancy marks of excellence. But if you want to try and increase your team's winning chance just by staying in it, then not taking those risks, then you can still play a crucial role. Now the 1030 nearly gets a shot right up into the top of the tank, and you can see how clearly frustrated I am just by my actions. I was very frustrated at the time, but not frustrated enough to throw my life away, because I still feel like there might be something left to do. When I look towards my right there, I can clearly see that all of those tanks are a one-shot for me. It's about trying to remember those things. I used to have a modification that would record the hit points of the enemy vehicles, but I didn't really feel that that was a fair thing to have. And I think it's better if you try and assess the situation yourself and not have to rely on a mod for something like that. But by noticing that all of those tanks are a one-shot, then I felt like I've still got a slight chance. Now, the M103 there, when he was on an upslope, so to say, and he was using his gun depression, then I wouldn't be able to go through the top of his turret that reliably because it was a small target. However, when he crests going up a slope, then the top of his turret is facing down and it's an easy pen for me. However, with the WTR Panzer IV falling to the Su-122-54, we are now in a 2 versus 6 situation. What's the first course of action for me? Try and get into cover. My idea was that if I can go and get into this position here, that maybe I can lure people out into the open for the T10 to kill. However, it doesn't look like the T10 is going to be killing them, and so I must take it upon myself to shut him down. We kill the first T10 on the enemy team, while my T10 battles the Su-122-54 in the center of the map. And while I'm worried about the Type 4 Heavy making his way over towards me, if the Type 4 Heavy gets spotted, then probably the T10 is going to be able to engage him. Now in these scenarios, you've really got to try and kill things as quickly as you possibly can. But when they're above you and you can't exactly afford to slip up the slope that quickly, you're just going to have to hope that they make mistakes. And this T10 definitely made a mistake. Now I want to close the distance. I'm going to try and face hug him, get my mantlet up in the air. I go forward. He for some reason stops on an upslope, and so on a little bump there, and he actually allows me to just shoot him in the back. That silly sausage, but I'm not going to be complaining, because now that allows me to use his wreck to go after the E75 that we ricocheted. Wow, 2 ricochets in a row here against these tier 9 tank destroyers. I'm baiting the shot, and the E75 actually shoots the gun there, now panicking, which allows me to finish him off. And yeah, how many kills? That was 4? Okay, yeah, I'll take it. 4 kills in a row. Well, 5 if you're including the M103 as well. We're on a bit of a Reaper medal here in World of Tanks, right? And now, yeah, the tables have completely turned, and it's all about just using this wreck to hopefully avoid the Type 4 Heavy shell. Now, because the Type 4 Heavy is likely using the derp gun, if he's firing high explosive rounds, if they hit a wreck, they get completely absorbed, and so that gives me an opportunity to just try and bait the shot into, with his poor accuracy, into the T10, just like that. And so that should allow me to pop round the corner and snipe into the cupola for a top gun. But nah, the T10 gets the kill in the center of the map. But not bad. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without this guy. If he hadn't fought that Su-122-54 off in the center, the Su-122-54 would have used those windows and just finished me off. Plus, he probably definitely stopped the Type 4 Heavy from just advancing along the ridge aggressively to shoot one into the back of me, because I guess the Type 4 Heavy was worried about the crossfire from the T10 from here. And by just staying in it to win it, we actually managed to come through that 2 versus 6 with the victory. And while this result isn't exactly impressive from a damage standpoint, we did get some quite decent experience for all of those kills in a row. Do they even still have the Reaper medal in World of Tanks? It doesn't look like they have. That was for progressively killing tank after tank after tank with a single shot. shot, a Hetzer special if you want to call it that. So some credits made here. I don't think we fired any premium rounds, or maybe one. And you got to see that after the WZ-111 GFT is not getting shot by tank destroyers with great penetration, 300 millimeters of penetration from the Stridsvagn 1030, its armor actually holds up very well. Good old fat ISU 152, and in our IS-7 this was a first class high caliber for 6,000 damage dealt, just shy of 1,200 base experience and 1,400 spotting, and the IS-7 blocked 5,200 damage, enough to kill the tank 2.5 times over. And that's why this is still one of my most recommended vehicle for both a new player and also an experienced player, because sometimes it's just going to leave you scratching your head as to how you got through that scenario. One thing I didn't like about this replay though was how many premium rounds I fired, which means that we barely make a profit. And so there you have it, two of the more entertaining and also confusing games that I've played in the last week, where at the end of it I was certainly questioning, how am I still alive? And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments down below, or at least describe to me where you've had a moment like that and what caused you to be able to get through the game. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.